The throne room was a symphony of impossible architecture and soft, living light. It was a place designed to humble any who entered, and the human standing at its heart felt appropriately small. He kept his eyes forward, his posture straight as the guards had instructed, but his mind was a torrent of memories. It had been a frantic, desperate thing, finding the alien vessel adrift in the asteroid belt, its engines dead and hull breached. He'd been a simple salvager, drawn by the signal, expecting scrap metal. Not a survivor. He had found her in an escape pod, the only one launched. Her form small and still under a shimmering preservation field. Her skin was the color of twilight, her hair a cascade of fine silver filaments. She was unconscious, one arm bent at a worrying angle. He had fixed the arm as best he could, given her water when she woke, and listened to her gasping story in broken galactic common. She was noble, she said. There had been an attack. She had to get home. The journey back to her people's space had taken weeks. He learned her name, a soft melody of syllables he practiced in the quiet of his ship's cockpit. She learned his, a simpler, harder sound. She told him of her world, of its 3 moons and singing forests. He told her of Earth, of its single beloved moon and roaring oceans. They shared meals from their respective rations, finding some things delicious and others utterly baffling. He taught her a simple card game. She hummed a haunting melody that seemed to calm the very metal of the ship. A bond formed in that quiet, star-dusted isolation, a quiet understanding between 2 beings who were, to each other, utterly alien. And now he was here, on that very world she described. The air smelled faintly of ozone and blooming night flowers. The guards who had met his ship were impeccably polite but rigid, their armored forms imposing. They had escorted him here, to this magnificent chamber, and instructed him to wait Dot at the far end of the room. Upon a dais that seemed grown from crystalline wood sat the monarch. The ruler was tall, posture regal and still, draped in robes that shifted color like the surface of a nebula. The monarch's features were sharp, wise, and impossible to read. This was the parent of the young woman he had pulled from the void. The silence stretched, thick and heavy Dot, then a side portal irised open. She entered. She was transformed. No longer in a torn flight suit, she wore a gown of flowing, liquid fabric that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. The silver of her hair was intricately braided with threads of precious metal. Her arm, he noted with relief, moved without a hint of stiffness. But her eyes, those large, luminous eyes he remembered filled with fear and then gratitude, were the same. They found him immediately, and a brilliant, unrestrained smile broke across her face. She did not run, but her walk was swift, her steps light on the polished floor. She moved past the ranked guards, past the court officials who stood in silent rows, and stopped before the human. She reached out and took both of his hands in hers. Her skin was cool and smooth. "You came," she said, her voice clear and full of a warmth that seemed to push back the formality of the throne room. "They told me you had agreed to come. I have waited to properly thank you." He managed a slight bow, feeling every bit the rough-edged scavenger in this palace of refinement. "You asked me to, and I wanted to see you safe. Safe because of you," she insisted. Then she turned, still holding one of his hands, and faced the dais. "Mother, this is the one. This is the human who rescued me." The word mother echoed softly in the vast space. The human's understanding shifted, recalibrating. The monarch was not a king, but a queen. The ruler's gaze, which had been fixed on him with analytical precision, now softened minutely as it rested on her daughter. The love there was unmistakable, a fierce, protective glow. The queen rose. She descended the steps of the dais with a graceful, flowing motion. She was even taller up close, her presence both majestic and intensely personal. She stopped before them, her eyes moving from her daughter's radiant face to the humans. She studied him, not as a subject, but as a puzzle. "You return my child to me?" the queen said. Her voice was lower than her daughter's, a resonant contralto that filled the space without effort. "You braved the debris field, took a stranger onto your vessel, and navigated the border routes to bring her home. Our scouts had searched the sector for cycles. We had feared the worst." A flicker of profound relief, an old pain, passed behind her eyes. Why? The question was simple, but it held the weight of interstellar politics, of cynicism born of experience. He had read the reports, transmitted by the princes during their journey. The attack had not been random. It had been a calculated act by a rival faction. Strangers were not to be trusted. The human considered his words. He thought of the moment he had pried open the pod, seeing not an alien, but a person, injured and alone. He thought of the quiet conversations, the shared silence watching stars wheel by. Why? He repeated, his voice rough in the polished air. Because she was there. Because her signal was a cry for help. And on my world, when you hear a cry for help, you answer. You don't first ask what constellation it came from. The queen's expression did not change, but something in her bearing seemed to relax, a tension he had not consciously noticed until it began to ease. A simple code, she mused, but one that seems rare in the wider galaxy. Your actions have disrupted many plans. The ones who sought to harm my heir, to shatter our line, are now exposed. You have done us a service far greater than you can know. The princess squeezed his hand. I tried to tell them. I told them you asked for nothing, that you shared your food, your ship, your kindness. But they had to see for themselves. The queen now took a step closer, her gaze piercing. My daughter speaks of your kindness as if it is a tangible force. She speaks of your patience, your respect. You treated her not as a prize, nor a pawn, but as a person. That, perhaps, is the most alien thing of all to those who move in shadows. The human felt a flush of embarrassment. I just did what felt right. Precisely, the queen said, and now a true smile, small but genuine, touched her lips. That is the heart of it. You acted from a place of inherent, uncalculated decency. It is a trait my people value above all, though we sometimes forget it in the intricacies of court. She looked at their joined hands, then back to his face. You have our gratitude, human, not as a transaction, but as a debt of honor. Name what you wish. A title, territory, starship technology. It is yours. The offer hung in the air, immense and life-changing. The court officials seemed to hold their breath. The human looked from the queen's earnest face to the hopeful, shining eyes of the princess. He thought of his old ship, now sitting in the royal hangar. He thought of the quiet of deep space, the simple satisfaction of a good salvage. He took a deep breath. Thank you, Your Majesty. The offer is more than I could imagine. But I don't need a title or a new ship. I suppose, if I could ask for anything. He paused, choosing his words with care. I'd ask for permission to return. Not as a rescuer or a guest, but as a friend. And maybe, if it's possible, for your people and mine to start talking. Officially, my world doesn't know much about yours, and I suspect the reverse is true. It seems a shame. A profound silence followed. Then the queen did something extraordinary. She laughed. It was a warm, rich sound that seemed to startle the very light in the room. You salvage a princess and ask for diplomacy as your reward. She shook her head, a gesture remarkably human. We will have a feast tonight in your honor. You will sit at the high table. And tomorrow, you will meet with my chief envoys. we will draft a formal introduction to your Earth governments. But for now, she placed a long-fingered hand on his shoulder, the touch light but charged with meaning. For now, you are a friend of the court, and a beloved friend to my daughter. Welcome home. The formal audience was over. The queen withdrew with her officials, leaving the human and the princess in the now less intimidating space. The princess, her regal bearing melting away, let out a happy sigh. I knew she would understand, she said. Come, I want to show you the gardens. The starburst blooms are opening at this hour, and you can tell me all about what you have been doing since we parted. As they walked, side by side, out of the throne room and into a corridor open to a twilight sky where 3 moons hung in a delicate crescent, the human felt a deep sense of peace. He had not come for reward. He had come because he had made a promise, and because he had wanted to see with his own eyes that she was truly well. He had found her not just well, but radiant, and he had found something else, a door opening, not just for him, but for 2 worlds. It was a better salvage than any he had ever found in the cold, dark silence of space. It was a future warm with light and friendship.